welcome to Fighting Over the VCR. My name is Matthew.
My name's Nancy.
And we want to thank you all for joining us for this episode. We're going to get kind of heavy and then kind of silly.
Yeah. That's a great way to describe it.
Well, I think for both of us, our first movie is going to be, it's deals with some very serious things that happen. I think you probably might have some personal connections to some of the topics of that movie.
Sure.
It being very female driven, whereas our second movie, I basically picked out of my own personal connection to it because it's not very good. But it's not. I mean, I enjoy watching it, but it's not very well known. So we're going to, in the second half of our podcast, talk about a movie that means a lot to me for very specific reasons. It's called Thrashin. While we're going to start off, and Nancy's going to give us a little summary, and we're going to talk about a great movie that means a lot to us, that I actually got in trouble over recently because for my rewatch before the podcast, I showed it to my wife, and she had never seen it, and she is mad at me because I had never shown it to her after being together as long as we have. And this great movie is called The Legend of Billie Jean. So, Nancy, why don't you get us started off?
All right. So, The Legend of Billie Jean came out in 1985. It stars Helen Slater and Christian Slater playing brother and sister, though they are not brother and sister in real life, despite the last
Shocker.
Name.
I was totally shocked.
Well, this was confusing for us as kids.
Well, yeah. As kids, we were like, oh.
Of course.
They're obviously brother and sister. I mean, come on. They both have blonde hair. And
yeah.
They were in a movie together where they were brother and sister. I mean, we had seen the Cusacks do that a million times. Why can't the Slaters be doing that? And they're not brother and sister.
Exactly. It also has this actor named Richard Bradford as Pyatt. And Peter Coyote plays a Detective Ringwald. And they have two friends that live in the trailer park with them, Ophelia and Putter. Putter played by Yeardley Smith before she got the role of Lisa Simpson. And then Keith Gordon plays Lloyd, a rich kid that they encounter later. It's set in Corpus Christi, Texas. And middle of the summer, real hot, kind of sticky summer. And the movie opens with a shot of a scooter. A Honda scooter of some kind.
A Honda Elite.
A Honda Elite scooter that is Christian Slater's character. His name is Binks, which is his pride and joy. And he and his sister are heading over to like the local In-N-Out or Dairy Queen or something.
I think it's more like, it's kind of like a Sonic, if anyone knows what a Sonic is, where you like drive into a stall, order your food, and then someone on roller skates or whatever can come out and bring you their food.
Yeah.
It's that kind of place.
They were out of vanilla milkshakes. He gets a strawberry milkshake.
Strawberry?
I know, exactly.
You got me strawberry?
Yeah. So as they're there, this car full of jerks comes over and is harassing Binks for his bike and starts harassing Helen Slater, who plays Billie Jean. Binks is really protective of his older sister and says, get off it, leave it alone. And he's like, oh, what, the bike or the girl? And, this is how the movie starts. The movie starts with massive sexual harassment. Bullying. It's intense. And to get away from them, he pours this crappy strawberry milkshake all over this guy. Well, they end up at a little local lake that has alligators or something in it and are just kind of hanging out on this really, really hot day. And who shows up but Hubie and his friends, and they steal the bike and mess it up. They trash it. And again, this is Binks's pride and joy. And again, they live in a trailer park. We've got to assume from the very beginning they don't have a lot of money.
No, their dad is not in the picture for whatever reason, and the mom, does what she can to get by. But Binks saved up all of his money, birthday money, anything that he ever got, to buy this scooter, which he takes great care of, and he loves. It's a source of freedom for him and Billie Jean, that they can like escape, the trailer park and actually go and do things, because again they don't have a lot of money, and it's this really hot day in the summer in Corpus Christi. And one thing that I caught on this showing of this watching of the movie that I never really got before was that Hubie, the leader of the jerk squad, they go to high school with Billie Jean. So they kind of like, she knows who he is, and he and his friends all know who she is, because she's very pretty, and everyone tries to like pay attention to her because of that, and they hit on her and do all these things trying to get her attention.
And let me just point out, her appearance, her prettiness is the comment that's made throughout the entire film.
Oh no,
she's totally objectified from the minute the movie starts.
And she knows this because as the movie, as Nancy will continue, her looks become a very important theme throughout this movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so after the bike's stolen and trashed and Binks gets it back, they also beat the shit out of him, and Billie Jean had gone to the police department to report that the bike had been stolen, and encounters Detective Ringwald, played by Peter Coyote, who, is actually, I'll say it right now, my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah, Peter Coyote is he does a lot of narration in a lot of different things, from nature programs to historical documentaries. So you might recognize him when you see him, maybe, but if you hear his voice, he has a very distinct voice, and he really he actually really feels for Binks and Billie Jean throughout the entire movie. He totally gets it.
Yeah. So after Billie Jean reports it, she comes home and finds that the bike was returned, but it's totally trashed, and her brothers had the crap beat out of him. And the next day, they head over to get the money that is owed to fix the bike, and it was $608. They go to Hubie's dad's shop. Not kind of like a.
It's like a grocery general store.
Yeah, and Hubie's like, whatever, I'm not paying that. And then the dad walks in and is like, what's going on? And I think he even sends Hubie and Binks away.
Binks doesn't come in the store.
That's
Billie
right.
Jean is her friend Ophelia, who lives in the trailer park with them, has a car. So she drives Billie Jean and Binks to the store, and Billie Jean is adamant that Binks and Ophelia stay in the car. She will take care of it. I mean, he's already gotten the crap beat out of him. She's worried that he's going to do something stupid, which, spoiler, he does dumb stuff throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And gets them in more trouble. But so it's only her in the store. Hubie is like, I'm not paying that, and then she kicks him in the balls, which is a great scene. And then his dad, Pyatt, sees this happening, is totally embarrassed that Hubie would act this way, and tells Hubie to get out of the store.
Which then, gives Pyatt the opportunity to really take advantage of Billie Jean. He says, I have that kind of money here, but it's not in the register. It's upstairs. We got to go upstairs. And he gets her alone, and he pulls out this huge wad of cash and lays down just $50 and says, all right, here you go. And she's like, what's this?
That's $50.
That's $50. That's $608. He's like, yeah, honey, we're going to go on a pay-as-you-go, earn-as-you-learn plan.
The layaway plan is what he calls it.
The layaway plan. And it's so disgusting. I mean, it is so, so disgusting. And again, this is in the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. Yeah. And she's able to break away from him, sort of. Like, she runs downstairs and he's right behind her, but he's, holding her back. He's restraining her.
She has to fight him off.
She's got to fight him off, and then they get downstairs, and he's restraining her because then Binks and Ophelia show up, and Hubie comes in, and this whole thing ensues. A gun is discovered in the register, and Pyatt insists that it's not loaded, and Binks is just holding the gun, and it goes off. And it shoots Pyatt, and it just sets this whole domino effect of bad stuff that is awaiting Billie Jean, her brother, and their friends. All because it all starts over this goddamn scooter and these boys that just wouldn't leave her alone. Once Pyatt's been shot, it sets off this huge, running from the law kind of theme that carries through the entire movie. And my favorite scene in the whole movie is once it's been arranged that the money will be paid, they are going to meet in a mall. And this huge scene at the mall happened. The detective had set it up.
Yeah, what happened? They had called the police and were like, "We're going to turn ourselves in," and he goes, "Well, but Billie Jean's whole thing is, but I want the $608 and I want Pyatt to give it to me."
Yep.
And and they said,
that's
"Okay,
the condition. We'll
meet at the mall in this area of the mall, and that's where the exchange will take place, and then we will turn ourselves in."
Yeah, and if that had actually happened, it would be a 20-minute movie. But no, because Pyatt, for whatever reason, has money that he didn't even have to provide. Like, the lieutenant was taking care of this.
Yeah, it wasn't even Pyatt's money.
Nope.
The lieutenant,
which wouldn't have mattered to Billie Jean. Just getting money from Pyatt would have been fine.
Yeah, but she probably would have been annoyed that it didn't come out of Pyatt's cash register.
But the fact that Pyatt is dangling the money in front of her and, like, taunting her all over again, saying, "Honey, you would have loved it." And it's just so gross. Like, everything about it is so gross. And instead of just handing her the envelope like everybody would have thought would be fine, nope. Drops the envelope, puts his foot on it, and somehow calls his son out. And I don't know what his son was supposed to do.
Grab her.
Attack her. He emerges from the fake plants that are at the mall, and, she's able to run up escalators and kick him in the nuts for a second time, and then run through a fountain and up more escalators and just cut through them all with Rebel Yell by Billy Idol playing. So good. Like, my favorite scene. And, they escape. But, again, now they're in deeper, deeper trouble. And now that it's just them against the law. And it never had to be this way. All they wanted was justice. And here, she's the one dealing with greater injustice in terms of the sexual harassment, in terms of them being bullied, them being taunted, the bike being destroyed. Just so much shit is happening to them that is just so unfair, yet they're from the wrong side of the tracks. They're teenagers, they're kids, and Pyatt gets to take on this whole, they're these violent, dangerous kids, and law enforcement needs to be doing something about them kind of stance. And it's just gross. It's just so gross.
At this point, they're kind of taking this attitude of, no one's going to believe us. Mm-hmm. We, because of how our age, or how the fact that they come from the trailer park, and Pyatt owns a store, so they're trash, and he's just he's good businessman from in the town and everything. So they try to be very strategic with how they handle this, because they know it could possibly go bad. So they've got and knowing that they're also, like, morally they are really good people, just being, it's all just a huge misunderstanding.
Yes.
They try and make sure that they are protected as much as they can in this whole scenario. So one thing they do is they don't have any money. They're poor. Yeah. They don't have any money. But they need supplies. So they go to a toy store, and this is a great scene. They go to a toy store to get walkie-talkies and batteries. That's all they need.
Yep.
And what they do is, in what looks like crayon on pieces of paper, is they write IOUs and put it where, and like they take the IOU, put it next to where the walkie-talkies are, and they grab like some G.I. Joe walkie-talkies that are awesome, and then they put it next to where the batteries are, and then, I mean, and because they're good people, they would definitely pay them back for this. Once this, they're gonna get the $608. I mean, they'll do what they can. But dumbass Binks, who it's hard to really tell. I mean, this is a movie from the 80s, so everyone looks older than they actually are.
I'm going to say he's 16.
He's
maybe
probably,
17.
He's probably supposed to be 16.
Yeah.
And she's probably supposed to be 18.
Yeah.
17 or 18. Binks, because he thinks he's like, oh, I'm above the frickin' law, and he thinks he's all hot shit, steals a very realistic-looking toy gun.
Because in the 80s, they still sold realistic-looking toy guns.
Right. So, you know, after this whole trade-off goes bad, Billie Jean is running to get, you know, to escape.
In the escape vehicle.
And Binks and Ophelia and their friend Putter, Putterjacks, played by Yeardley Smith, who've all decided, you know, the two of them have decided to help out Binks and Billie Jean. They've got the getaway vehicle going, and they seemingly are about to get away, and the really nice cop who's trying to help them out catches up with them.
Yeah, he goes in a different entrance and figures out where they are.
Dumbass Binks pulls the toy gun on him.
Yep.
So, of course, he thinks it's a real gun. He's hearing he's never met Binks. He doesn't know if he's a good kid or not.
Yeah.
He just knows from what his sister told him. And he has to assume it's real, so it becomes this huge chase. And this escalates things to a level that is preposterous. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that they show this happening because, especially in today's day and age, where things can get so easily misinterpreted or overblown or anything because of the internet and whatnot, they become criminals everywhere. Like, people are like saying, like, making up stories.
So what I'm going to assume was maybe 3 days total, maybe 4.
Maybe.
Like, they were technically, like, on the run for maybe 4 days, which felt like an equivalent thing of people watching O.J. Simpson in the White Bronco, which happened, like, 10 years after this movie came out. Just this intense attention. You know, for example, so this happened, obviously, before the internet was created, and the main way news was distributed was really the radio, like what you're hearing,
television.
Yeah, what you're hearing. Yeah, so television, radio, and newspapers, and what you're hearing most on through the movie are like the local radio station giving all these updates about what's going on with Billie Jean, and like every now and then there would be these news reports that cut in showing updates, and the idea that this one small accident, it really was an accident at this general store, becomes this ultra sensationalized story in this part of Texas. Thinking about that nowadays, it's like, how many shootings are there every day? How many incidents are there every day? You don't hear about, like, nothing gets this kind of attention. And it's not even just that these stories were getting really blown out of proportion and it just kind of kept snowballing over these 3 or 4 days. They took cover at a house that they thought was empty. Turns out it was another teenager who very, very rich and very into movies and filmmaking. So he set Billie Jean up to answer all of these, all of this publicity. Like, she was able to finally make a statement. So she goes in and dramatically cuts off her long blonde hair and gets this short haircut, which then tons of people emulate, which is so bizarre.
Well,
and then she makes a video, which then gets distributed to the press so people can hear her explain their side of the story. Say, we're not thieves, we're not crooks, we didn't mean to do anything. This is a big misunderstanding. All we want is our $608. Fair is fair.
Well, building up before that even happens.
Mm-hmm.
Before she cuts her hair, two very significant things happen that really kind of flip the switch on in her mind. First, when they get to Lloyd's house, the rich kid's house, they turn on the TV and start watching the news coverage.
Yeah.
And while watching this news coverage, they just kind of see, all the lies, everything that's being made up about them, people from different cities that are in completely different directions are saying that they robbed them at gunpoint and took their money and all this kind of stuff. It's really overblown. And
they become scapegoats for everything.
But there's in some of the interviews with some of the people who witnessed the actual events at the mall, there's people who really kind of get on her side.
Yeah.
And they kind of show, I think that guy's a jerk. And,
Yeah.
And so she kind of, so the first big moment is she starts seeing, oh, wow, there's people who really hate us because of lies. And then there's people who actually see us for who we are.
For who they are or
they saw. Well, because they saw
what they're
happening.
Interpreting.
Yeah, from what they saw.
Yeah.
The second big thing that happens is after they're done flipping through the news, they stop on the movie Joan of Arc.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, what happened? What is this? And Lloyd explains the whole story of Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
And how she had she had short hair to pretend to be a man so she could fight in the war. These two things, I think, seeing the news reports and then seeing this movie really inspire this moment to where she needs to, first of all, answer Pyatt and all these people making up stories about her and her brother. But she also needs to then also shed one of the things that has always been brought up about her. She's never no one talks about her personality. It's always about her looks.
Yeah. If she cuts her hair really short, then maybe they'll think of her as less feminine and stop objectifying her the way that they constantly have been. And at this point, at the very beginning of the movie, when she and her brother were at the lake, Hubie and his friends were taking pictures of her. So Pyatt was selling photos of her. So not asking her permission to use her image. He's selling merchandise. He's profiting off her image. Like this Billie Jean brand. He's making tons of money off it. And this is just, a few days into it. And then as the rest of the movie plays out, as Billie Jean and the rest of them are all on the run, they gain a lot of coverage. And this, as an adult, all of this seemed much less realistic than I think it did as when we were kids. Because I think when we were kids, we were like, well, sure, of course there's going to be We Love Billie Jean bumper stickers and Frisbees and T-shirts and visors. And I don't think it seemed as weird when we were kids because I don't think we got a grasp of how long it was. Because I really don't think this took place over more than, at most, a week.
The whole movie?
Yeah. Well,
maybe 2.
I think from I think
there's definitely a significant amount of time that kind of passes between when they leave Lloyd's house to when the final confrontation at the end of the movie is, because there's a lot of they get separated and a couple other different things happen.
If it's more than 2 weeks, I'd be shocked.
Let's just give it 2 weeks.
Okay,
a fortnight.
We'll agree that it's a fortnight.
A fortnight.
Yeah. But in this tiny little bit of time, when you think of how quick 2 weeks is, she has become this media sensation. If it was nowadays, she'd be the top trending tweet for 2 weeks. That's kind of the way that this movie portrays this fame that she got. She couldn't go anywhere.
There'd be at least 5 podcasts made just about her.
Exactly. She would have already had 3, Lifetime movies made about her or something.
There's a YouTube channel out there, the Legend of Billie Jean.
Exactly. It's just Instagram pages, Pinterest boards, whatever you could think of.
Billie Jean sightings.
Exactly.
Everywhere.
And as an adult rewatching this, that seems very unrealistic. The following.
I might disagree with you a little bit, only because where this is taking place is such a small town. It's like it's in Corpus Christi, yeah, and it's in Texas. I mean, Texas is huge, but considering the levity of the situation and the kind of small town feel that they're trying to portray in the movie, I could see something very similar to this happening. It's all over the radio. There's, beat caller 608 to win tickets to the blah 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 concert and tell us how much you love Billie Jean. This kind of stuff is going on in the movie. Yeah. And I think that's one of the other, we've talked about, the assault that Pyatt has with Billie Jean. We've talked about
so gross.
The kind of the gender war that is going on, throughout this, the equality war of the rich versus poor, the haves and the have-nots. But I think the other thing that really kind of it touches on, and this is not new, it's been going on for a long time, is just kind of the media sensationalism is what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
And the media is all over it because it's a great story. Yeah.
And she's a pretty girl.
Well, there's that. and then you have Pyatt, like, he's all about profit. I mean, the first scene where this really kind of, the light bulb goes off in his head is there's a picture of Billie Jean that one of Hubie's friends took of her in a bikini at the watering hole, and they've got a poster of it. It's like a wanted poster kind of thing of her, and these girls come in saying, "Hey, how much for the poster?" in the window.
Starts a bidding war between like 3 people.
And what does it start at? It's like, I'll give you $5. I'll give you $5 for that poster, and then another guy walks in. I'll give you $7. We've got $8, and he's like, I'll give you $10, and he's like, well, and then Pyatt chimes in, well, if you want to get that framed, it'll be $12.50, and the guy's like, sure, $12.50 for this, and at this point, Pyatt is like,
ching ching.
Well, her brother shot me and almost killed me. I've been embarrassed, because my son's I can't live up to my jerky name. I'm going to make a buck off of this. Yeah. And
luckily, that starts right in front of Detective Ringwald.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is great. Like, because he's so clued in right away. Like, this guy sucks.
He's definitely... Ringwald is great kind of as a tool in the story, just because he's almost like, yes, he's involved, but he's almost like the observer watching this, and is kind of the more, like, again, he's the moral center, like, like, he understands that shooting someone is wrong, and stealing is wrong, and being on the run and not turning yourself in is wrong, but he also he can see right through Pyatt the whole time. Oh, yeah. Like, I think he's like, I know something else went on here.
Well, he even said that to him at the mall when they were going to have the payoff. Like, what really happened in that store?
She is a pretty girl, isn't she, Mr. Pyatt? Yeah. Like, he knows. So, but the point I was going to make also about the media is, I mean, you've got the radio cashing in on this because, trying to get people all interested in it, and and all this happens without anyone really knowing what the real story is, what actually happened in that store.
Well, who are they asking? They're asking Pyatt. Pyatt's version is the one that's getting retold.
Right.
Because he's the one making money off the story, and in theory, he's not in a position where he has to run away from the law. Like, the law is on his side. Right. Like, appearance-wise, I mean, if they knew that he, almost raped her in his office, then maybe the law wouldn't be on his side, but that'll never come to fruition because it's his word versus her word.
So getting back to the plot of the events of the movie. Yeah. When she records her her video basically telling people like what happened. One thing that's really interesting, and you never even really know if she even tells her brother or Ophelia or Putter, is she never says what actually happened between her and Pyatt. The whole thing that she is emphasizing is that they're making up stories about us, and all she wants is the money for the scooter that her brother that was her brother's, that Hubie destroyed. And I think a lot of that is because she doesn't want her image to be the center of it all.
Yeah.
She wants it to just be, this is what is right.
Yeah.
Do what's right.
Fair is fair.
Exactly. And that becomes the running theme for for her, the followers that she ends up getting, which is, and then they make the video, they release it to all the news outlets, and they start getting this huge following of, people cutting their hair, putting bumper stickers with, fair is fair and I love Billie Jean, which again, profiting off of it, is, pretty sleazy, but,
T-shirts.
I'm not saying that getting the message out there is wrong, but the commercialization of terrible events is where what it becomes. And again, people don't know the whole story.
Nope. And the only time she talks about the whole story is at the very end, after the confrontation at the beach, where Binks is dressed up as her and returns Lloyd as their hostage, and he gets shot, and like the whole kind of chaos breaks out as people running around or whatever, and then she stumbles upon his pop-up shop. Pyatt has like a little pop-up stand on the beach, because that's not even where his real store is, with all of his Billie Jean merchandise, and it's just everywhere.
Yeah, and everyone there is wearing T-shirts with hats, and it's this whole kind of media circus. And
he even had this really, really large, like Burning Man installation size Billie Jean with her short haircut pointing a gun to the ground, like statue, probably 50 feet, 100 feet or something?
No. It was probably like
800 feet now.
It was probably 10,000 feet. No, it was probably like 8 feet tall.
Oh no, it's bigger than that.
No, because it was on top of his store. Okay. It was on top of his pop-up store.
Okay. Either way, it was huge.
It looks like this monolith.
Either way, it's huge, and here she at this point, she doesn't even know. Like, of course, she's run into people. Like, she's seen women with her haircut, but I don't think she's really seen all the merchandise that's out there. And she certainly hasn't seen that he's the one who's profiting off of it.
Right.
So she gets to confront him, and it was finally in this confrontation where she says, you told me you were going to earn as you learn, pay as you go, the layaway plan, and that you were going to love it. And that was the only time she'd voiced it, but she got to say it in front of several people
and the news and everything. Yep. There's like the radio people, the newspapers, the TV people are all filming all of this happening.
And what does he do? He goes into the register, like grabs a bunch of money, hands it to her, and says, "Here for your trouble."
Yeah, and, it might be a little more, a little less. Just take it, Of course, he's got all the money in the world now because it's blood money.
It's blood, and she's like, she gets to kick him in the nuts and then throws all the cash at him and says, "You can't buy me. You cannot buy me." And then the whole, we can assume at that point, all of the merchandise goes up in flames.
She kicks him in the nuts. He falls down. Like a tiki torch kind of tips over and starts burning all the stuff,
including the big Burning Man statue of Billie Jean.
And as the people are, listening to her that were there, see what had happened, they start taking off the shirts and the hats and all the merch that they had bought and just start throwing it into the fire because they don't know the true story.
Nope.
They don't know that this guy's a freaking asshole and almost rapes her.
Yep.
And then they gave him his money. Screw that guy. So they start burning everything. And then as it's burning, you have this now mirror image of Billie Jean burning, which is just like the scene she saw in Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
Kind of making that connection of, you know, this woman who tries to do something beyond the norm.
Yeah.
And really try and get justice.
Well, yeah, she was truly she became a symbol of bravery, injustice, and empowerment for all of these young adult women that, you know, were following her story. And, you know, Pat Benatar's really great song, Invincible, kind of plays off and on throughout the second half of the movie. And it's just so great. And the movie wraps up with a shot of them on a snow scooter. or, you know, it opens with a scooter and it ends with a scooter. But we have to assume that, hey, they've been able to move on. Everybody, you know, they're going to be fine. They've moved on. But I feel like watching this movie again and knowing that we saw it so many times when we were kids, it really impressed that, you know, there is some really crappy stuff that happens, and the bullying was horrible. The sexual harassment behavior is just beyond, and the fact that all they wanted to do was get their story out. They didn't even want their story out. They wanted their goddamn money. That's all they wanted. Give us the money to fix the scooter. Let's move on. But other adults had you know, one adult in particular had a totally different idea of how he wanted things to go down, and he got to control the story.
Oh yeah. Well, and it touches on so many feminist themes that are really important, and I think it's one thing that's interesting about this movie is I can't really think of a lot of movies today that specifically deal with this kind of situation the way it is dealt with in this movie. And I know that there are some, and maybe it's because we're in a lot different kinds of times now. But when we watched this as kids, you know, I'm younger than you, so a lot of these themes were a little more, they were over my head. You know, some of these themes were over my head. I got that it was right. I got the difference between the right and the wrong.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older, I have, because we probably saw this movie on HBO.
Oh yeah, and we definitely had a dub of it. We
probably recorded it off the cable.
Yeah, we watched this movie
multiple times.
But neither of us had seen this movie in many years.
We didn't even rent it. We probably just saw it on cable.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched this movie, gosh, probably like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like start to finish. Like I'd probably seen parts of it and be like, oh, this is cool, and then watch a little bit of it and then turn it off. But I'm like watching it now and just seeing how dramatic and how important I really kind of think that this movie is. It does not like after school special kind of theme, but it's because it's so serious. But at the same time, this is definitely like a movie that young people should watch.
Well, and the other thing too is that the movie stays on topic. You know, this movie is like an hour and 30 something minutes. It starts, like I said, with the shot of the scooter, her being harassed, the scooter getting taken very quickly. Like it gets right to the point very fast, and it really never deviates too much from they just want justice. And and there's a lot of movies, like if it were made nowadays, I could see several little side stories that they would try to make more important or whatnot, and you're like, let's not necessary. I felt like this movie stays focused. I mean, there's a couple things with Putter that get kind of annoying. Her kind of being a clingy younger friend from the trailer park.
Okay, let's talk about Putter. Okay. Putter is a really interesting character to me.
Okay.
Number one, yeah, she's kind of the comic relief.
Oh, very much so.
From a lot of very serious kind of things going on. And how old do you think Putter is in this movie? I mean, she looks like she's like 14.
I was going to say no more than 14.
No more than 14. Yeah. And she's always talking about like how she's going to get grounded. And, you know, or she is grounded, so she can't go anywhere or do anything. Yeah. Well, she's actually a really important character because, I mean, she basically is grounded all the time because her mom beats her.
Yep. I mean, when we see the mom for the first time at the police station, she hits her so hard she knocks her down. Yeah.
And, I mean, she's just another kid who is, you know, feeling put down in this movie. And they don't get really into her story in a sense of her mom's, like, just crazy or whatever. But it's just another symbolic character to show another type of empowerment that is, you know, that at that point in time she needed. Yeah. I mean, her mom was, I mean, there's definitely kind of this like youth, you know, kids versus adults kind of theme that, you know, is not, that is, you know, kind of in the movie. I mean, again, I repeat this over and over again. People, you know, when we were kids watching this, I didn't think they were teenagers. I thought they were in like their 20s, you know, because they look, that's how they look. Yeah. There's definitely like this very kind of coming of age kind of scene with Putter that where they're all in the car, they're being chased. Some lunatic guy wants to get the reward for Lloyd, starts shooting at him, and they think she's shot, and it turns out she's not shot. She has her period. And in the movie, it's, again, it helps kind of show like the youth aspect of their group. They're not like an older gang.
They're kids.
This is kids just trying to do what they've been told their whole lives, do the right, be good and do the right thing, and yet they're surrounded by these shitty adults. Yeah. I mean, her mom and Pyatt are clearly like the quintessential symbols of shitty adults. Yeah. I would almost go as far as saying like Lloyd's dad, who just misinterprets the whole thing, is kind of a shitty adult.
Well, yeah, he's a politician.
Because he's a politician.
All he's worried about is his political career.
I mean, total coincidence that of all the people that they can befriend and then fake a kidnapping with is the district attorney's son, right?
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
I really think that the supporting characters in this movie, while I agree it stays on topic, really, you know, like you were saying, like, it, you know, it's not a long movie. It kind of stays, it stays on topic throughout it. The supporting characters help keep the story going.
Oh, sure. Well, and it wouldn't be feasible for Billie Jean and her brother alone to do the stuff they did. I mean, they clearly needed it to be the four of them and eventually the five of them to kind of carry out this up to 2 weeks of
probably 2 weeks
of kind of being on the run and whatnot. But I don't know. What other thoughts do you have? Like, who was your favorite character?
Well, it's really, I think that it's really easy to say, like Billie Jean is like she's the easy option, you know, because I think everyone can agree like she's so great. You know, Helen Slater does a really great job. And her character is great. I think I mean, Peter Coyote as the police, the detective is probably my favorite character, I'd have to say. And then I actually really like Putter, only as not just the comic relief, but because it's like another point of view. Like if you're a viewer watching this go down, it kind of, I mean, and as kids, when we were watching it, you know, we're not even 10 years old when we're first seeing this movie, and that kind of kind of got me to watch it, like
Sure.
her funny lines and everything.
Yeah. Well, within their group too, she seemed to be like, as weird as it sounds, her being the youngest, like the most media savvy. Like they said that she watched TV all the time.
Yeah,
And
'cause she was grounded all the time.
exactly. So for her to kind of take an interest in the fame that they were getting was kind of interesting.
Well, she took an interest in the fame, but then I think also when, at one point Billie Jean turns in Ophelia and Putter, and that's when her mom comes to pick her up, smacks her in front of, and not just smacks her in front of the police and Ophelia, but there's also this lineup of girls who had cut their hair who all turned themselves in saying that they were Billie Jean to kind of throw the police off the trail and all that. And she grabs a pair of scissors and then chops her hair off to kind of show, like, you can't do that to me anymore. And so I felt like she was an important part of the movie.
Sure.
One kind of not so serious note about that, though, is I wonder, and anytime I've ever seen her in real life, she's always had short hair. So I wonder, like, did she cut her hair and then just keep the Billie Jean haircut throughout the rest of her life? Or did she always have short hair and was wearing a wig at the beginning of the movie, and then we actually see her real hair?
It was probably a wig.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it's interesting. There's a couple scenes that for my favorite scenes, I think one of my favorite scenes is after they've kidnapped Lloyd, the
willing hostage.
They go to a convenience store, or they're at like a thrift shop.
Yeah.
And Putter and Billie Jean are in the car still.
Yeah.
And these kids come up to the car and they're like, "Are you Billie Jean?" And Putter's like, "Sure is." And they're like, "You really have to help out Kenny.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of trouble." And you're like, "What the hell is going on?" So all these kids start taking her to this house. And as they're walking from their car to this person's house through the neighborhood, all these people are like, "Oh my God, that's Billie Jean.
Yeah.
Let's go." And they see her get taken to the house, hearing this man yelling at a kid.
Things being thrown in the house. It sounds like he's being beaten. It's awful.
So
awful.
She goes into the house, sees this boy who looks skinny as hell with bruises on him and cuts on his face, hiding between a couch and a door.
Yeah.
As his asshole father is beating the shit out of him, and he's sitting in the kitchen just staring at him
with a belt in his hand.
Yeah. And she's like, "Come on, we're gonna get out of here." And he's like, "You sit down, and
who are you?"
And then she says she's scared. She's like, "I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. I've never done this before. What the hell am I doing going in this house?"
Like, I'm not a social justice warrior normally.
And she's like, "I'm Billie Jean." And he's like, "You ain't her." And then he looks out the window and sees all the people who have come to see if she's going to help Kenny. Mm-hmm. And he freaks out. And he's like, "Oh my God, you are her.
I don't want trouble.
I don't want any trouble. Is that your gang outside? Do you want a soda?"
Yeah. Yeah, it snaps him and he realizes how messed up things are, and the kid gets to escape.
Right. And she takes the kid out. And this is where she sees the positivity of the media attention that she was getting.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with her looks. It had everything to do with, they're telling these stories, and she puts out this video, and she's got all these people following her, and she got to help this kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really strong scene to show just, and I remember that making an impression on me as a kid. The other scene that really kind of got me choked up while rewatching this was at some point after she's turned in Ophelia and Putter, her and Binks and Lloyd get separated because they don't have a car anymore, and they get separated. And she's running and gets picked up by a girl who had, with the Billie Jean haircut. He's like, get in. And she, like, takes her to meet up with someone else. And then all of a sudden there's, like, this chain. There's, an 80s montage.
A social network set up.
And this is where I think you first start hearing the Pat Benatar song. And eventually, like, she's in a car, then she's on the back of some guy's motorcycle and everything, and she's going through this network, and then she ends up at, like, this clubhouse kind of place, and all these people are there just to, like, cheer her on, and just, what do you need kind of thing. And it's very kind of, the whole montage is very kind of music video-esque, but I thought that was just a really cool kind of thing, like how she was able to inspire and bring these people together. And again, this is all kind of based on, like, a whole bunch of different allegories and all this other kind of stuff from history and everything. But that was probably my favorite, my second favorite scene, is getting kind of that. Couple other final thoughts that I have. Kind of interested in watching that Joan of Arc movie now. I don't need to watch. There was a couple, like one that came out, and I think it's the 90s, called The Messenger. Maybe that came out in the 2000s, which is about Joan of Arc with Mia Jovovich. But I think I'd rather watch that black and white one. It is probably slow and it'll put me to sleep, but I really want to watch it. Or I'm interested in watching it. Ophelia, the driver. Yeah. She drives like a maniac, and they probably should have died like 10 times in this movie.
Driving her dad's car.
Lloyd's dad,
Dean Stockwell, is in Blue Velvet by David Lynch. Just wanted to drop that note. He's also in Married to the Mob.
Yes, he is in Married to the Mob. The music in this movie,
I love it.
This is probably, seeing this movie and then being a kid of the 80s is probably why I love Billy Idol so much, because of that scene with Rebel Yell. And that Pat Benatar song is probably my favorite Pat Benatar song. It's definitely one of the strongest that she's done, in my opinion, just from... But I also have not listened to the Pat Benatar catalog either, but just the hits.
Even the stock music has kind of like a Depeche Mode kind of quality.
Kind of.
But kind of an intensity. I thought the music in this was great.
And then lastly, we talked about the gender war. We talked about the equality war on a very lighthearted note that kind of blows this whole discussion. There's also the war of to bra or not to bra in this movie.
Oh boy.
Which Billie Jean just can't decide, whether she's going to run around with support or not. I don't know. That just kind of happens. I'm sorry. I noticed it.
I didn't notice that. I wasn't paying attention.
Why would you?
Yeah, I wasn't noticing.
I clearly was mesmerized by the looks of this beautiful girl, and
exactly, because that's what everybody's supposed to notice when they see her.
Right.
Well, that's great, and again, we knew. I think we understood as kids that this was an intense, serious movie, but I think rewatching it now, we see it much more so, which is very different from the movie you asked me to watch for this week.
Okay.
Not a serious movie.
Not at all. So we're going to transition now to hopefully something that, who knows, this might only take 10 minutes. No, it won't. So
it's called thrashing, but I'd call it trashing.
No, it is called Thrashin, apostrophe at the end of the end. No G. Okay. There's no G.
Okay.
It's Thrashin.
Starring Baby Thanos.
So this movie's called Thrashin. It came out in 86, and it stars Josh Brolin. Now, the movie came out after Goonies, but
it had to have
been filmed before because he looks younger in this movie than he did in Goonies. And basically, it's about skateboarding. And without going into a lot of plot details, I think the more important thing for me in this movie is why I like this movie. So when I was a kid, I liked skateboarding. Mm-hmm. I had a skateboard. I skateboarded with my friends around the neighborhood. But I'm just gonna put this out there right now. I was shitty at it. I was not good. I had some. I broke a wrist. I broke a wrist. I popped my lip, and I broke my wrist on the first day of summer. Yeah. Had a cast all summer, and then for like a month into my next school year, when I was going, it was between like 4th and 5th grade, so I was not very old. And then in like 3rd grade, when I was skateboarding, I slammed into the concrete and busted my lip open, and I had a scar. I still have a scar and everything from that. But I love skateboarding, and over time, I would go to the video store and rent skate videos. Like, I'd get like the Bones Brigade video. I watched like the Search for Animal Chin like 10 times. Like, I was all into getting skate videos at the video store. And we're not talking Blockbuster here. We're talking like hole in the wall video store. And I saw this movie called Thrashin'. And I thought it was a skate video. I thought it was like a compilation of guys skating, but it wasn't. It was an actual movie. And the movie itself kind of plays like like a really bad Karate Kid, where
except there's no Mr. Miyagi.
There's no Mr. Miyagi or anything like that. It's basically Josh Brolin is a skater from the Valley who has friends in Venice Beach. And for the summer, he decides he has a couple skate competitions in Venice Beach, so he's going to hang out with his friends and skate in Venice Beach over the summer. And
maybe win like a sponsorship or something, right?
Yeah, he signed up for a contest, which is like a pool vert contest where you skate in an empty pool and you do like hand plants and airs and all this kind of stuff. Stuff Nancy has no idea what I'm talking about.
all cool tricks and stuff.
Cool tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anyway, and then he's going to do this contest. It's called a downhill, where you basically start at the top of a mountain, go down a windy road, and then whoever wins the race, if you survive the race, because a lot of guys just fall and can't finish it. Wins like $1,000, and they call it the LA Massacre.
It's like a Tour de France, right? Kind of bicycle race, but for skateboards.
Yeah, it's like a Tour de farce.
Yeah.
But anyway, he goes to Venice Beach, and he can't just, it's not just about him skateboarding all around. There's got to be, a love story and all of that, because it's an 80s movie.
And she's the love interest is a horrible actress. It was just so painful to watch.
Well, okay.
Pretty much everyone in this movie is horrible actors.
Well, Josh Brolin's pretty good at it.
Even he's annoying, though.
Yeah, well.
There's like a wannabe Richard Grieco guy. Sherilyn Fenn's in it, and she's okay, but she's whiny too.
Okay. Let's go down here. Okay. So Josh Brolin, Corey Webster. He and his friends, they're like their little clique of skate friends, and then they meet up with like the bad group called the Daggers, which as like a skate gang name, I think is pretty awesome. They have like a stencil of a dagger that they stencil all over the house they all live at and everything like that. Come on, that was cool. The head dagger, Tommy Hook, played by Robert Russler, who, if you don't know who he is, don't be surprised, because I didn't know who he was either, other than he is a poor man's Richard Grieco, like you had said, and he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Oh, he plays Tina's boyfriend.
No, that's Nightmare on Elm Street 1.
Oh.
He's in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Okay.
Yeah. The Nightmare on Elm Street no one watches because it's weird. Anyway, Tommy Hook's little sister is visiting from Indiana. Blonde and blue-eyed Chrissy is played by Pamela Gidley, who unfortunately passed away last year.
Oh.
She was only 52.
Wow, that's very young.
Yeah, she died in 2018.
Did she ever do anything else?
Yeah, she did.
Did she go to acting school ever?
I don't know, but she played Teresa Banks in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, directed by David Lynch.
Oh my god.
And Tommy Hook's girlfriend, Velvet, played by Sherilyn Fenn. Also from Twin Peaks fame.
Oh boy.
Thanks, Nance. And obviously, Josh Brolin, Corey, meets Chrissy. They fall in love, have some very, very cheesy scenes over some very, very cheesy music. And this all kind of then concludes with the LA Massacre race, where, of course, at the very end of the race, it's Corey versus Tommy. They're the last two to survive, going down to the bottom of the hill, and Tommy eventually hits a rock or something, goes off the side of the freeway or off the highway
and dies.
No, he doesn't die. And Corey wins, and Corey gets the girl, and he gets to hug his Chrissy, and then Tommy eventually comes up to him and is like, Corey, man, you're insane, man. That was crazy. Gives him a high five and everything, like they can be bros or something like that. Yeah, and then the movie ends. Yeah. And this is a fairly light movie. Yeah. It's not something to really lose sleep over as far as what, Legend of Billie Jean or anything else that is of importance. But it left a huge impression on me. Yeah. I remember
you did love skateboarding.
And here's the thing is the reason why I picked this movie is not because I think it's the greatest movie and everyone should watch it. In fact,
clearly
it's really hard to watch. You can't stream it. You can barely buy it. And I eventually the reason why we rewatched it and I'm talking about it is because I happened to find on YouTube someone had sliced it up into 9 different parts so I could watch it. So I watched it and I was like, this is not a great movie, but I love watching this movie. And
you still love watching this movie?
If it was on, I would stop and start watching it.
Oh wow!
If it was on, I'd stop channel surfing and I'd watch it. A, for the skateboarding, and also for the music in it.
But the music's horrible.
The music is great.
The music is cheesy canned, 80s music. Oh my god! You're fired.
You're fired. Okay. Over the years, in high school, I hung out guys with skateboard because I loved watching them skateboard, and I just like the style, I like the music, around it. I love watching guys skateboard, and even to this day, there's one of my favorite shows to watch. And I don't know if they're going to continue doing it, is a show on cable called King of the Road, which is a scavenger hunt skateboard show where teams go from city to city and have to do tricks. And I could watch this show all the time. I'll put reruns on it just to watch these guys skateboard. Again, I'm not good at it. It's okay. Would not try and do it. But so many different times, the skateboard culture or skateboarding itself has made me happy. So when I saw this movie, I was like, you know what? Why the hell do we do this? We do this because it's about our lives.
Yeah.
We're trying to talk about things that are important to us.
And I've never seen this movie. This is not a movie that...
It's not
I don't remember us having it on VHS, or if we did, you never... I was never in the room when you were watching it.
I never had a dub of it.
Okay.
I rented it, and then it was if it happened to be... it might have been on HBO or Showtime or something like that, and I might have caught it then.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something I'd watch over and over again. But I remember really enjoying it.
Can I throw out something to compare this movie to?
Yeah.
So Matt and I saw a different skateboard movie not even a year ago called Mid-90s. And that was a very serious movie.
Oh, that is a good movie in the sense that it's well made and it's very real.
Yes.
But it's really hard to watch
and
because it's so real. And and it takes place in the 90s with all these skateboard kids. Yeah. And I remember I knew these kids. I remember sitting there watching it I know kids just like this doing the same thing.
if you're not in the mood for a light, silly movie about skateboarding in the 80s, I would suggest picking up Jonah Hill's mid-90s.
Yeah, it's watch it. You could probably watch it once. It's hard to watch. It was, and maybe it was hard to watch for me because, like I said, like I knew kids going like that, so it was like hard for me to like deal with certain things.
But all of the emotion and drama aside, it still had plenty of amazing skateboarding in it.
Oh yeah, it was fun to watch.
There was definitely a lot of like skateboard choreography that was really cool. There was a lot of really heavy stuff in it that went along with the skateboard. And I guess the ratio of skateboarding to non-skateboarding in Thrashin, there's plenty. It's like 70% of the movie is just watching them skateboard.
Oh yeah,
or
it is
building their half pipes.
Montages of skateboarding relentlessly with amazing music behind it.
Not amazing music.
Devo is in it. There's some really good mid-'80s kind of punk stuff in it, but this also, because of the music, also culminates into something else that I really like. Is this was the first movie where I had to hear one of my favorite...
Red Hot Chili Peppers are in this movie.
No, well, yes, they are in this movie.
Awesome.
And like the fun, cool Red Hot Chili Peppers, and not the commercial Red Hot Chili Peppers of the last 20 years, more like the like creative artist Red Hot Chili Peppers of the beginning.
Yeah.
No, this was the first time I got to hear one of my favorite LA punk bands from the 80s, the Circle Jerks. And it's the scene where after Corey and Chrissy get it on in the trailer that he's staying in at his friend's house, he, takes her back to her place, and then Tommy sees him pulling up and skating off, so they chase him down. And as they're chasing him down, that was the first time I had heard "Wild in the Streets" by the Circle Jerks.
Oh yeah,
and
that's great.
I didn't know who that band was. I just remember being like, this song is fucking amazing. And it wasn't until years later when I became a lot more music cultured, when I heard that song again, I was like, that's the song from that movie I grew up watching. This is freaking amazing.
Okay.
And that has, their first album is one of my all-time favorite punk albums, so I'm really connect to it on that level too.
So I will clarify, aside from them, Devo, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, all of the background music, like all the canned music, is just so goofy.
One of the songs in the club before the Red Hot Chili Peppers performs is the Bangles.
Oh, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, you didn't. Or else you'd have much more respect for the music in this movie. He's also wearing a lot of cool t-shirts. He's got a Susie and the Banshees t-shirt on. Culturally, they really hit this. Here's something that you probably didn't know about, but I know about because I've watched other movies about skateboarding. The production designer on this movie is a woman named Catherine Hardwicke, who lots of people know because she directed Twilight.
Oh, wow.
But before she did Twilight, she did a really good movie that I think you should watch called Lords of Dogtown, starring Heath Ledger. It has Emile Hirsch in it, and it's about the beginning of like skateboard contests and up and coming, sponsorships. And it's about Stacy Peralta, who eventually started Powell Peralta, which is the company that signed Tony Hawk, and Tony Alva, who is kind of a skate pioneer, who also is in the movie Thrashin as one of the daggers. So Catherine Hardwicke made that movie Lords of Dogtown and was the production designer on this. So she comes from like a skateboard culture. So that really helped with authenticity in this movie. And, if you can't hear Nancy's eyes rolling.
No, I appreciate all that kind of stuff. That helps. And that helps give me a better appreciation for this movie, because I think if the acting was any better in the scenes when there wasn't skateboarding, it would be easier to take this movie.
Oh, I know.
But the movie, like Chrissy is so bad. And I know Josh Brolin has become a better actor, but he was horrible in this.
Well,
I mean, and all of his goofy friends,
his goofy friends are terrible. They're so terrible.
The scene after he's supposed to break up with her reminded me so much of the scene from Say Anything when they're all like at the gas and sip, but this is like the dumb goofball version, because even the friend with the hat reminded me of like a low-grade Jeremy Piven.
Yeah, his blonde friend Tyler
reminds me of Jason Segel from How I Met Your Mother.
The one with the blonde flowy hair, or the curly hair?
The curly hair guy, the goofball with
the goofball one. Yes, he does look a lot. He does seem a lot like Jason Segel.
He has a Marshall quality about him.
And then Tyler, the blonde whose house he's staying at, is actually in Lost Boys.
Yeah, I recognize him.
So you could recognize him. I would agree. The acting in this is not great.
No.
As far as Chrissy goes, I will say this. She never had kind of the, oh, me, I'm just some sad kind of girl kind of quality. Or she always stood up to her brother. She stood up to Corey. I mean, she was kind of ballsy.
Well, and she did say she didn't want either. Like, she never picked sides. Like, when they were supposed to be in this contest again, when they were going to be on opposite sides, she never said, I want you to take him down. Like, she didn't want her brother to get hurt. No. She didn't want her boyfriend to get hurt. No. I mean, and there was some shady shit that they did when Corey was skating. Like, there was a half pipe or something, and like they poured a bunch of jacks down. It's like they messed up the
daggers were jerks. They were a gang. Suck. They were a gang. I mean, but you know what's funny is I actually kind of liked Tommy Hook. Like, there was something like, he was annoying and stupid, and she calls him out for like how the show is always about him, like the Tommy show never stops kind of thing, because he's got such an ego being head of this gang. But there was something about him where I was like, I kind of feel like he is just trying to like take care of his sister and have fun. He just is a jerk about it, and he's like, I mean, you don't beat up people and you don't burn their ramps down or try and hurt them. I mean, come on. But
do better.
Yeah, do better. I agree. Like, this is not a the award-winning Sherilyn Fenn movie. I mean, she's not
awful in it.
I mean, but this is probably one of her first movies.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I thought I liked watching her in this movie. She was like this punk rock girlfriend.
She was dressed like Madonna.
And she's kind of dressed like, she has like big hair and like
outerwear. Underwear is outerwear.
Underwear is outerwear kind of thing. She would paint her face all crazy. At one point they have like this battle scene, and she cuts a lock of her hair and turns it into an earring and gives it to Hook to wear, which Corey then just rips out of his ear, and it's just crazy. But again, this movie, this isn't like the impetus of how much I like skateboarding, but it was part of your kind of like, part of my growing up,
sure,
and part of my life. Now, there's another movie that probably people are like, why aren't you talking about this movie? Probably because it's worse than this movie, in my opinion. It stars Christian Slater, and it has skateboarding. It's called Gleaming
the Cube,
which means nothing, which has no meaning in skateboarding. It's so bad that they couldn't sell a movie called Gleaming the Cube with a guy skateboarding on it because it means nothing. So if you tried to ever rent it or watch it, it could also be called like A Brother's Justice.
Okay.
Because that movie has like this political aspect of it where his brother's murdered and he's trying to solve his brother's murder. Oh, and he just happens to have a skateboard. That's kind of what that movie's about.
Okay.
But it was totally marketed as a skate kid gets justice for like his brother's murder, and that is not a movie I could stop channel surfing and watch. I probably only would for nostalgic reasons, but I would not be like, oh man, this movie's amazing.
Yeah,
I gotta rewatch this movie. Whereas Thrashin', I would.
You'd still call it amazing?
I think that it is not a good movie, but I have that emotional connection to it because it's something I saw as a kid that had, I mean, I remember like there's scenes where they're doing the downhill and Corey's preparing for it and he would take like duct tape and wrap it around his hand and his fingers. And I remember like being like, I'm going to go skateboarding today. Oh, got to put my duct tape on. And I like duct tape my hand and be like, oh, I'm pretending I'm going down the downhill. So I got to like drag my hand on the ground. Good thing I put duct tape all over it. That kind of thing.
Well,
and so there's that emotional kind of connection to, and I think that's true of a lot of movies for people, is like you saw this movie growing up. It's not very good, but you can look past all of that because you enjoyed it. I mean, we talked about that with like The Sandlot.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a lot of people who love The Sandlot because maybe they love it because they think it's funny or that it's about baseball or whatever, but there's probably a lot of people who love it just because like they saw it as a kid and it brings them back in time.
Sure.
You know, so
yeah.
Anyway, so again, my main keys were skateboarding. I love skateboarding. And like I said, I mean, even today, like I was on my phone looking at skate videos on Facebook. Because so I was like, oh, Trans World Skateboarding's on, and I'm just watching people do tricks, and I could sit there and do that for an hour just watching skate videos. And guys, especially now, because like when I was skateboarding, street skating wasn't even as big. It was all about like trying to do vert skating, which you can't do unless you have a ramp. And then street skating got big later in like the late 80s and throughout the 90s, and that's like the main, like one of the main things now, where it's like jumping over stuff, flipping your board and all of that, and just watching that is just like how I'm mesmerized by how guys do these tricks. It's fun to watch. It's fun for me to kind of go back and kind of live vicariously through these people doing these tricks, thinking like, man, that'd be amazing to do. And so I really enjoy it. And,
well, I'm glad that it's so important to you. I mean, I don't remember us ever talking about this movie. I never saw it when I was a kid. I'm glad that it wasn't more than an hour and a half long. If it had been one of those movies that was trying to stretch out to 2 hours and it's like, really, that would have made it even worse. But, I mean, I'm glad I got to experience a part of what was so important for you as a kid.
And you know, like we've said before, we're trying to we want to really kind of find movies that connect to us growing up. And I think that it would have been, it was a movie I needed to kind of, like, since I rediscovered it and I was, like, able to watch it and figured out, I mean, and then I don't know if I said this, but my wife found it on eBay and bought it for me.
Yeah.
So we could watch it for this podcast.
Yeah.
And getting to, like, rewatch it and everything, it really kind of solidified to me, like, there was some important things that might have like ideas that like incepted into my brain because of watching this movie that kind of made me who I am. So.
And watching Josh Brolin have trying to fit the Infinity Stones on his duct taped hand as he was skateboarding. How
awesome! Like, look at that connection. I'm really kind of curious, like how much skateboarding he actually did in this movie.
I'm going to guess he had to have done some of it.
Oh, yeah. He had to at least done some, but I don't know. I mean, some of the tricks and everything, I mean...
I would love it if anyone ever interviews him now and asks him about this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be hilarious.
We'd like to talk to you about a movie you did in the 80s. No, not Goonies. Not Goonies.
Another movie with other kids.
Yeah.
Thrashin.
Yeah. Do you think that... I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this... But do you think the Cusacks would have any interest in watching this movie? Do you think I could get them to watch this movie?
I don't know.
Maybe we could...
I don't remember. Well, Lloyd Dobler was a kickboxer, so he definitely is into physical stuff. So maybe he would be interested in watching a skateboard movie.
Well, and, like you said...
And there is a brother-sister conflict in this movie.
Yeah. Well, maybe sometime we could ask them if we ever got them on this show. We're going to try.
Yeah.
But, like I said, we started out heavy. We got light at the end there. Mm-hmm. And once again, I want to thank everybody for listening. This was kind of a fun kind of week because I got to relive two really important movies. And to me, one that kind of really touched me personally, and one that we got to watch as kids. I'm really glad we got to rewatch.
Yep. I was really glad to rewatch a movie that I really liked growing up, and then experience for the first time one of Matt's movies.
I want to ask you back to Legend, but so do you have, like, watching it now, do you have like a way different appreciation for it watching it, you know?
I have a deeper appreciation for it now. Yeah, because I didn't understand the bigger issues the same way. And especially in the current political climate, just with how much, finally issues of sexual harassment are finally being discussed. I mean, it all fits into a much larger picture.
I mean, I can imagine, like, the many now members of Congress all cutting, like there's this aspect of, like, they could all just cut their hair and wear fair is fair shirts.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Elizabeth Warren's already got the short hair. She needs a fair is fair shirt. I mean, and that works because she was an economics professor, right?
Oh my god. That is actually a really, really funny visual. I love that. And then
AOC's already there personality wise.
Yeah.
She's
even the men who have kind of like longer hair, it's like they can get cut even shorter, a little more cropped. And, oh man, that's funny. I like that idea.
So,
well, thank you guys so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and we appreciate you sticking with us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.